He was walking down the cold, gray streets, lost in his own thoughts. Then he saw her, a small figure huddled by a corner, scribbling on cardboard. The word she wrote made his heart stop. Hungry. No one seemed to notice her, but he couldn't look away. What happened next would change both of their lives forever. It was a chilly morning when David left his apartment, coffee in hand, ready to start another ordinary day. He had always thought he was busy, important, living a life full of purpose. But something felt off that morning, as if the world itself was a little dimmer. He walked past crowded streets, people rushing to their jobs, faces buried in phones, and no one seemed to see each other anymore. Then he noticed her, a small girl, maybe 10 or 11, sitting on the edge of the sidewalk. She had a thin coat that barely covered her small frame, and her hair was tangled, brushing against her pale cheeks. In her tiny hands, she held a cardboard piece and a marker. With deliberate, careful strokes, she wrote a single word, hungry. David stopped dead in his tracks. The word was simple, but it cut through him like ice. He looked around, expecting someone, anyone, to be helping her. But the street was indifferent. People walked by, glancing briefly at her, then moving on. Some sneered. Some pretended not to see. And there she sat, alone, almost invisible in the middle of the chaos. He approached cautiously, unsure if he should speak. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked, his voice soft. The girl looked up, startled. Her eyes were wide, fearful, and yet there was a quiet strength in them, a small spark that refused to be extinguished. She didn't answer, only shook her head and went back to writing on her cardboard. David's heart ached. He thought about his own childhood, about the times he had gone to bed hungry or scared. And yet, he had always had someone to help him, to pick him up. This girl had no one. She didn't even ask for money or attention. Just to be seen, just to be noticed. He knelt beside her, careful not to startle her. The city around them roared, but in that moment, it felt like they were in their own small bubble, two souls who had somehow found each other in the middle of indifference. He wanted to ask her name, to understand her story, but he sensed that words might scare her away. For now, he just sat quietly, letting her know that she wasn't invisible, that she mattered. David watched as the girl's hands trembled, while she wrote another word on her cardboard. She didn't speak, but her eyes told stories he couldn't ignore. Stories of hunger, cold nights, and loneliness. He wanted to do something, anything, but the world seemed determined to stay cruel. As he hesitated, a man walked past and muttered, "Get a job or go home, kid," with a cruel laugh. The girl flinched, pulling her coat tighter around her frail body. David felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept it in check. He had learned that sudden outbursts rarely helped. A few pedestrians threw coins at her, but not out of kindness. More like an annoyance, as if tossing money could erase their guilt for ignoring her. She looked at the coins briefly, then pressed her forehead against the cardboard, almost like she wished she could disappear. The scene crushed David's spirit. How could people be so heartless? How could a little girl be left to face a world so indifferent to her suffering? David's mind raced. He thought of the cold nights, of empty stomachs, and he felt a deep, helpless sadness. He wanted to fix everything, but he was just one man. The city didn't stop for her, and it certainly didn't wait for anyone to care. He tried talking again. "You don't have to do this alone," he said softly. "Someone can help you." But she only shook her head, her eyes filling with quiet tears. It wasn't that she didn't want help. It was that she had been hurt too many times to believe in kindness anymore. Then, without warning, a group of teenagers laughed as they walked by. They knocked the cardboard out of her hands and stepped over her shoulder. David's stomach turned. His heart ached for the little girl who had already been through so much, now humiliated in front of strangers. She curled up on the ground, silent, invisible, and broken. David felt tears prick his eyes. He wanted to scream at the world, to make them stop hurting her, to make them see her value. But all he could do was kneel down, offer his warmth, and pray that somehow, just somehow, He could be the one small spark of hope she needed. David reached into his pocket and pulled out his lunch. A sandwich, an apple, and a small chocolate bar. "I know you might not want to trust me," he said gently, placing it near her. "But you need to eat. You deserve to eat." She hesitated, staring at him with wide eyes. Then, slowly, she took the food, her fingers brushing against his hand. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. She finally whispered, "Thank you." The words were fragile, like a candle in the wind, but David felt them ignite warmth inside his heart. He stayed with her, talking softly, asking her name, Lila, and listening as she shared bits of her story. Her parents had left her behind. The shelters were full, and the streets had become her only home. She hadn't asked for much, only to be seen, to be remembered, and for the first time someone truly cared. David didn't have all the answers, but he had empathy, and he had action. He offered to help her find a safe place, to connect her with people who could support her. Step by step, he held her hand through a world that had been cold and unfeeling. Days passed, and Lila's smile slowly returned. She began to trust again, to laugh again, to believe that kindness still existed. And David realized something profound. Helping her didn't just change her life. It changed his too. He understood the real power of small acts, how a single gesture could create ripples that spread far beyond what the eye could see. The streets seemed less gray now, the city less indifferent. Lila had hope, and David had learned the truth. Even in a world that often turns its back, a little kindness can light up the darkest corners. Sometimes, all it takes is a moment to change someone's life. A small act of kindness can ignite hope where there was none. No one should ever feel invisible. We all have the power to make someone believe in goodness again. See the world through compassion. It's there, waiting for you to act.